Right. Disney Speedstorm Season 14 overview. uh, what did I like? What did I not like? Am I optimistic or pessimistic about the future of the game? After the last... There are two options for this game. Option 1, Season 16, the Winnie the Pooh season, is the last season we get. Or we get maybe like one more roadmap afterwards, where maybe there aren't any more characters that will be added. But they're gonna do like one final update, like in the style of, if you get like the final, you're gonna get like big patch for like character balancing, and the game will finally be at a spot where all of the characters are going to be balanced. But the next thing we're going to know is the next thing we're going to be told is games getting shut down. Which, in a day and age where games are, literally lasting like months and then they're getting shut down, Disney Speedstorm has had a pretty good go of things. I'll be completely honest. Disney Speedstorm has survived longer than Marvel's Avengers did. Survived longer than Babylon's Fall did. Longer than Anthem did. Longer than, what was that frickin' Call of Duty wannabe? Anyways, longer than that did anyway. So, this game has had a good run. If we are looking at that possibility, where we look at Season 16 as that's the final season, and that's honestly where I am, where my headspace is at. That's the final season. We make it to there. We enjoy the ride while we get there. And then when we get there, if we get more content afterwards, great. If we don't, it's been a good ride. It's been a really good ride. I appreciate everyone that's stuck along with me for that ride. I hope the game continues on past that. But if I'm looking at this from the perspective of other games and how they've teetered out, this is following similar steps, where we're looking at increased monetization. We're looking at, not only one season pass, but two. We're looking at not only 2 season passes, but we're looking at an individual pass for each of these, which is more monetization. It's even more monetization, right? And then we're looking at, monetizing mid-season characters. We're looking at, these events needing we'll jump into this. We're looking at these events needing premium characters as well. So we're looking at a game where it's essentially impossible to do everything. It's impossible to do most things and to get most characters for free. It's just impossible. So if you're a free-to-play player, you're not looking at getting your roster to the tippity top. That's just not a achievable goal. However, I don't think this season has been quite the doom and gloom that maybe it looks like on paper. And I'll go more in depth with that, and maybe some of the good / nebulous things that are going on this season later on. I want to talk about the big elephant in the room first, and the big elephant in the room that I'm going to talk about first is the lack of track, the lack of new track this season. Forky, I fucking hate you. There was no new track this season, and no matter where you look at it, that's disappointing. The cut down on characters, yeah, it's sad from a... It's not great from a, like, collector's point of view, or from a point of view of someone that, you know, wants the biggest updates, right? Someone who wants the biggest things to happen, the biggest and the most characters to be put in the game. You know, people like that. Like, for the cut down to happen when it did, the cut down of characters to happen when it did, isn't great, in my opinion. Having a Big Hero 6 season and only having 3 characters from Big Hero 6 show up, really? That's a 7 character season at base, right? But if you look at it this way, you can get you can get Big Hero 6 Part 2. If that is essentially just a new character pack, you know, people who want those characters can get those characters. And those characters are going to be sick because those characters have had more time in the oven and more hands working on them, because there aren't hands working on 2 more characters for that season, 4 more characters for that season. There aren't people, working on new tracks for every single season. That's an unfortunate trade-off, but the trade that you get is you get characters like Zerg, right? You get characters like Lotso. My testing with Lotso has been minimal at best, but from what I can understand is he's probably going to put a dent into the meta, right? He's going to feel like other... He's going to be along the lines of like a Sully. He's going to be along the lines of like a Baloo. He's going to be that kind of like heavy defender character, right? And so is Zerg. Zerg is going to be that kind of heavy brawler character archetype, and I think he's had more time in the oven than Lotso. I think more care has gone into him than Lotso, because he's the character that feels like, wow, that feels like a premium character. Forky's a write-off, okay? Forky is typically the typical free-to-play character for the season, right? He's not good. He's not going to be putting a dent into he's not going to be putting a dent into, you know, anything really. His stats are nothing to write home about, and yes, that's from low levels. Yes, that is extremely low levels, but if we go down to my level 2 Rinsler, level 2 Rinsler has a higher top speed than a level 25 Forky. I know we're comparing apples and oranges right now, but Forky is, you know, if you've got a top speed that is going to look like it's going to be around the 400s or 500s at level 50, then that character is not worth investing in. And for my money, I don't think Forky is worth investing in. Did I think Forky was going to make a dent in the meta? No. Because he's not a defender, he's not a brawler. So I know that he's not gonna do much in terms of shaking up the meta of the game. It's just unfortunate that the character you're going to play most this season is the character that's the worst this season. Because it was only a couple seasons ago that we were given Zeus, who may or may not have been the worst Tron character, but all of the Tron characters were you know, shaking up the meta in some way. So Zeus was still very, very good. He just happened to be the worst of a great bunch. The worst of a great bunch. And that being said, I haven't had that much testing with Rinsler, but I've heard Rinsler is insane. I haven't had that much testing with Sam Flynn either, but from what I've seen of Sam Flynn racing against him in multiplayer, he's pretty good as well. That's it for talking about the characters this season. The other big thing that I want to talk about, the big new thing this season is lashed up my upgrade coins quite a bit, is these tails. And also, we haven't changed how Star Chasers work. Star Chasers, I believe, are infinitely better than they were before. Because they're passive now. These will you'll just be getting rewards as you're doing, instead of it being laid out like an event, where you have, like, cross or, you know, drive over 8 speed pads as mini mouse, or etc. etc. Now it's just taking certain characters into multiplayer, and these are just going to be done incrementally. These are going to be, you know, you're passively going to be getting stuff from this. And yes, there's more of a plus side to using, you know, whoever the premium character is that month. There isn't too much of a plus side to it. There isn't too much of a benefit to it. You're still getting some benefits from using characters that you already have in your roster. So I think that's a good change. These are pretty good as well. The only thing is, you see how they all have a date? If you miss that date, you cannot go back. You cannot go back to these. Which is unfortunate. So if you miss rewards on a certain day, you can't go back the next day. leaderboards have still been a thing. Still been a thing this season, and I think they're just a good. They're just a good addition to the game. I think leaderboards are just a good addition to the game. Free rewards is always a good thing. I just wish we weren't in the. I just wish we weren't in the situation that we were. I just wish we weren't in the situation that we were with, how seasons actually work, and how, like, just being locked out of one character can snowball into being locked out of the mid-month characters, can be snowballed into being locked out of, being locked out of characters in the season tour. Overall, this season probably is the weakest one we've had so far. I'd probably have to say, because there was, in terms of new content, this is the weakest season that we've had so far, because there's been no new track, not even an update to the existing Toy Story track, and we're not talking. And yeah, there could be several tracks for Pirates of the Caribbean, because there's 5 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. There's 4 Toy Story movies, all of which take place in very different environments. Like, most of Pirates of the Caribbean takes place on just pirate ships. There are locations that you can make, but there are locations that you can take from the movies and translate them into tracks. But at least you got something there. Here, you get nothing. I will, however, counter that by saying that the new characters that have been released feel like they've got a little bit something more. Like, visually, there is more to the characters being put out this season than there have been previously. I hope that trend continues, and I hope the characters that get released, if we aren't going to get a track with every season, if we aren't going to get a track with Winnie the Pooh, I can only hope that the characters continue in a way that these characters have, where they've just felt a little bit of a step above the rest of the roster. I can only hope that the characters are, the standard for characters being released in the game is raised a little bit more, and hopefully that does trickle down into, buffs for pre-existing characters, and hopefully some pre-existing characters start getting passives as well. I do like the supercharged. I like that most of the supercharged characters are characters that people already have built up at the moment. Obviously, I don't have all of them built up because I'm not a madman, I'm not insane. But most of the characters that have had supercharged and that are going to have supercharged are relatively easy to get to level 50 already. They're all either common or rare, and the ones that are, if we're looking at supercharged, I don't think any of these characters are epic. I don't think any of these characters are epic rarity. Maybe Hercules is, but he's a character that's been in the game since the beginning. Oh yeah, and Stitch, but he's been in the game for long enough now that if you don't have Stitch, what are you doing? But every other character is... Oh, and I would say probably the rarest character of this bunch is Elsa, but also she was one of the free characters last season. So they're all relatively easy to get as of this point in the game, and if you've been playing for the game for long enough, then you've got all those characters already. So yeah, that's kind of my overall like review of season 14. I don't think it necessarily is positive, and it doesn't bode positive for the future of the game. However, I think next season is the more important one because it is our first track after having a season without one. So I'm interested to see, is Wonderland a step up in quality of track when compared to the rest of the tracks in the game? As well as the characters being a bit of a step up as well. That's what I want to see. Has more gone into new tracks? Are we going to be looking at new tracks that are coming out because we're getting less of them in volume and quantity? Is the quality going up? That's my big question, and that's what we have to wait and see. And we won't know that until Thursday. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. According to analytics, apparently like something silly like 98% of viewers aren't subscribed. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Hopefully I'll see you guys on Friday, where I'll be doing my first impression video on season 15. So I'll see you guys then. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.